Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Welcome back to the e-commerce marketing podcast, everyone. I am your host, Arlen Robinson. And today we have a very special guest, Jennifer Burson, who is the president and founder of Generation PR, which is a public relations and social media marketing firm specializing in promoting beauty, baby, and lifestyle brands as well. Jen's retainer clients range from small and mid-sized brands to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies and everything in between. Jen is also the creator of Press Success, a PR masterclass for entrepreneurs to learn step-by-step framework for executing a PR strategy that converts into massive media placements for their businesses, and the Agency Accelerator, where she teaches the exact strategy to launch, grow, and scale a profitable PR and marketing agency in just about 8 weeks. So prior to founding Generation PR in 2005, Jennifer was a lawyer and practiced civil litigation at a prestigious law firm. Then she eventually saw the light and started her own business and decided to pursue creative endeavors. She's been featured on New York Times, Forbes, Inc.com, Business Insider, the Huffington Post, and many other well-known media outlets. So welcome to the podcast, Jen. You have quite a resume.
That was a mouthful. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem. In this episode, of course, we're going to be talking about a lot. I know a lot of what you're familiar with, which is public relations as well as influencer engagement. But before we get into that, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your background, as I know you've really done a lot, and I'm really always impressed by people that have such a diverse background. So why don't you let us know how you got into what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's kind of a not so obvious transition, starting out as a civil litigator,
right,
and then shifting into PR. But it's my path, it's my story, and it's been just awesome for me. I practiced law here in Los Angeles for about 4 years. I was at a big law firm, and it always, for me, felt more like a job than a career. Just felt like this kind of path that I was on. I was just kind of showing up every day, doing the work, but never really felt like it was the right fit for me or my personality. And I just always had this really strong entrepreneurial pull, and, kind of grew up where my dad had his own business, and really loved having my parents around when I was a kid, to take me to art classes and, do homework with us after school. And I started to really think through what my path would look like if I ended up making partner at a big law firm and, ultimately got married and had kids. And I just really realized that that was not going to be the right path for me. And I looked around, there were no women that had the life that I was looking for. They would have kids and either not come back, or they would have their workload cut significantly and kind of not be taken as seriously. So I saw the writing on the wall and realized I had to kind of forge my own path. And I just had this really strong pull to the beauty and cosmetics industry and baby and kids. And I could see products that I loved and that I used and have a really clear vision for how to promote them. Mm-hmm. And I just actually started promoting a brand on the side, fragrance company that I found in Europe on my bar trip, of all things. And several years later, I was getting ready to buy this product again. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I did a little internet research and kind of realized the company with this amazing products was based in California, but had no presence in retail and no presence online and no media mentions. Right. And I reached out to the company and I just said, can I help you? And, I started working for them for free just on the side while I was practicing law. And I loved the work so much that I started to think, if I can actually get paid doing this, it would be the best career ever. Getting paid to do what you love that you're willing to do for free.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's always the best way to go. And that's quite a story. And it's really impressive that you were able to get into something that you really loved and are passionate about. And there's a couple key takeaways that I want to point out before we move further. one of the things that really stuck out to me that you mentioned that I think a lot of startup businesses or young entrepreneurs struggle with is when they go into a particular niche. Of course, you said you were going to be going into the PR space, but rather than saying, okay, I want to be a PR firm that deals with all types of businesses. I'm going to take any business that comes my way, no matter what industry, no matter what type of business or service offer, what doesn't matter. I'm going to do it for you. But rather than kind of staying so broad like that, what you decided to do was you said you had an affinity for, baby products, the health and beauty space, and you decided to stick with that route. So you had a more narrow focus early on. And I think that's something that I'm sure has helped you out because you didn't spread your net so wide and, kind of have a hard time figuring out really what things that you were really good at. You just knew you had an affinity for that type of product, those types of companies, and you just honed in on it. So that's definitely something that I think, really rings true to what you said.
Yeah. And it's such a great point. I really realized that developing a deep expertise in those areas has allowed us to establish really solid relationships with the media and such a deep understanding of that industry that really translates into, for us, it's a solid reputation in those areas. And we attract really premium brands and great, well-known international companies with, that's where we've been able to pivot and support billion-dollar brands is, rather than being a generalist, if you develop a deep expertise in a certain niche, it's like they say the riches are in the niches.
Right.
And we've been able to charge premium rates because we are kind of sought after in those various areas. And then if, like you're saying, if other companies come and they're kind of outside the realm of what we love and what we're great at, I'll be the first to say it's not the right fit, no matter how, wonderful of an opportunity. If we can't best serve them with what we are the best at, then we, don't pursue those opportunities.
Right. And that's something that's really hard to do, especially early on, is to turn away business, to say,
oh yeah,
even though we're young, we may be struggling, we need all the business we can. It takes really a lot of guts to just say, no, that's not our area of expertise. We would rather focus on, what we're good at, then, those are the areas in which we could help you out. So that really makes total sense.
Yeah. And to your point, that's what I teach in the Agency Accelerator too, because I work with these people starting agencies, and they're, like you said, if someone's got a paycheck, they're in business, they'll take that work and they start to go down a path where they're unhappy with the work they're doing and they're attracting their less than ideal clients. So, it's very, very hard to turn down work. But when you start to have a clear vision of the kind of business you want to build and you really stay dedicated to that, you can, kind of really forge a path towards your dream business and not get sidetracked. And you just start to grow bigger faster when you're very clear on your vision.
Yes, that is 100% true for sure. Now, a lot of the listeners to this podcast are e-commerce businesses or e-commerce marketers, people involved in the marketing of e-commerce businesses. And, of course, your bread and butter is public relations. So how exactly would you say the average e-commerce business should approach PR if they really don't have a PR strategy in place?
Well, it's the best advice I can give is it's easier than you think. And I think a great tactic for e-commerce businesses are trying to land those digital media placements. So I wouldn't even consider print, press. It's really less relevant for an e-commerce business than ever. You want those high quality links that are going to drive traffic and interest to your site, so you can use your products that you're selling to try to secure features on these digital publications. You want to really go narrow rather than going broad and trying to be everywhere and being overwhelmed by the volume of opportunities out there. It's, you get that feeling of overwhelm and then you just don't even take any action. So we want to cut back on the feeling of overwhelm by just choosing a few places that you think that your store and the products you carry would be such a solid fit. So these are the places that you find yourself reading and you think to yourself, we should really be featured here. This is such a perfect fit for what we're selling, for what we offer in our store. And then you want to kind of get into the mind of those editors that are writing those features and try to think about a story angle or an approach for how you can propose your products and your store for those various features that they may be working on moving forward. So you can think about seasonal angles, holiday pitches, things like that. And the good news about digital online publications is that the lead time is actually pretty short. Okay. So you don't have to be thinking too far out in the future. I mean, maybe 4 to 6 weeks or so if you have a new product launch. But, with print magazines, it was always 3 or 4 months in advance. Right. So, summertime, you're already thinking about holiday and it's a little bit tricky to time it. Right. But with digital, they can publish. They're looking also for a lot of content they can publish quickly. And that's good news for you, is that rather than one print issue a month, these outlets are writing and constantly producing content. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of opportunity for you. And if you can get those high quality links right back to your site, then you're golden.
Right. And that's totally true. What you said is, as far as the game changing, as far as being everything is digital now, all of these editors and people that are producing these different publications or online publications or online media outlets, they're hungry for content and they're hungry for advertising. And so, yes, if you have the right, if you're the right fit for them, you can definitely get in. So that really makes total sense.
And Arlen, sorry to cut you off, but that's the key, what you said, if you have the right fit. Mm-hmm. You absolutely want to be sure when you are approaching these media outlets that you've really looked at their content and that what you're presenting to them is a good fit for what they cover. You don't want to waste anyone's time, and you don't want to just send a general pitch because it will get deleted, it'll get ignored, or worse. I mean, you could even kind of get yourself blacklisted for not really paying attention to what they're covering. So just tailor it and really present it in a way that shows you're paying attention, you're positioning your product and your store for their readership and their editorial focus. And that's where your pitches will convert.
Right, definitely. So you definitely have to do your homework. It may take a little bit of time. And I know when you're out there doing outreach, because I do a lot of the outreach here at OmniStar as far as business development. And, it can be tempting to take the easy route and just do put a blanket general pitch out there to, just a lot of companies all at once. But, if you just spend that little extra time digging into their site, finding out what would be good for their readership and their viewership, then that definitely will go a lot further. In this whole online advertising media space, one of the big buzzwords that has been constantly echoing around is influencers. So what do you think are some strategies for connecting and engaging influencers to promote your brand?
Oh, yes, influencers. It's such a kind of new, the term influencer is new. I mean, before that, it was bloggers and, mommy bloggers and other types of focused content creators online. And now, each social platform gives people that are great at creating content or have a certain position that they put out there that appeals to a certain demographic. Now they're called influencers. And what we're seeing in our space is actually different marketing tactics for different tiers of influencers. Mm-hmm. So the kind of main group that we've been hearing about for a while are called micro influencers. And, it's hard to say exactly how many followers they have, but it's somewhere around 10,000 to about 50,000 or so. And one of the key things that is helpful with these micro influencers is that they have the swipe up functionality on Instagram. So if you have 10,000 followers or more, they could do an Insta story and then they could offer a swipe up functionality and link directly to your product or your store. And so it makes them really appealing because they're not these kind of mega influencers that have millions of followers, which they have agencies that represent them, and they command hefty price tags, some $10, $12, $20,000 per post.
Right.
So that's really a significant barrier to entry for most brands and stores to work with those people. So the micro influencer is actually really appealing because their content is generally really beautiful and very curated. And you could look closely for these influencers that have the type of content that maybe matches your brand aesthetic or your store and your products look and feel, and also attracts the same target customer. Not only is that influencer your target customer, but the theory is that their followers would also be your target customer. And you want to look very closely at their actual engagement. So there's, these are businesses, these people are building their brands like a business. And a lot of times there are games that they play and, automating engagement and automating comments and likes and followers. What you want to try to look for is genuine engagement. So if you find someone that you think might be a great fit for you, just kind of look around for a little while, see when they post something. Do they get 5,000 likes in 5 minutes? And then it kind of levels out. That means they're probably buying engagement. And are the comments all 1 or 2 words? Cool, great shot. Then it's pretty obvious that those comments are bots or they're automated. So just spend a little time. And then you also want to look and see what other brands, what other products they're also talking about, because you don't want to be, positioned next to your competitors, or if this person is only talking about products every single day, they might not be as genuine or appealing as somebody who is really a genuine fan of your products. The other kind of newer influencer term we're hearing now, and this is a new one even for me, is the term nano influencer.
Okay.
and we've in the past kind of called these people ambassadors.
Right.
So they're the folks with about, 500 to 5,000 or 10,000 followers. Usually their sphere of influence are their friends and family, and then the immediate circles around them that actually know them somewhat personally somehow. They tend to have really good engagement, and they are actually influential over their followers. Even though it's a smaller group, their engagement's really high because there's a personal connection there. So therefore, their followers are actually listening to things they're recommending. And it's really exciting to engage with these folks because you don't have to really pay them. You can get a lot accomplished for product trade out.
Yes.
So we're seeing big brands, some of my bigger, the $1 billion brands are looking for these ambassador armies. And we're able to engage with this group with very high engagement and a lot of reach for a pretty low cost, just for product exchange. So that's kind of, now it's nano. So if you hear that word from micro to nano, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that is a new term. And that's actually kind of in my realm and a little bit in my bread and butter space. Is, of course, with OmniStar affiliate software, we provide a referral solution, and the companies that utilize our software get affiliates, or they can also be considered ambassadors. So those ambassadors, if you will, kind of would fit the category of those nano influencers, where they're getting some type of commission in exchange for doing their promotion across their social channels. So that commission could be product, or it could be money. It could be, whatever the company decides. And so the barrier to entry for obtaining those people is a lot lower than, when people hear influencers, they immediately, a lot of people don't really realize, and I'm glad you broke it down to the micro influencers, because that's, if you don't look at it like that, you would be leaving a lot of, things on the table that you hadn't really even considered, because I think when people think of influencers and hear that term, they immediately think of the Kim Kardashians and the whole Kardashian family, and they're like, oh, I can't get an influencer, that's nowhere in my realm of influence. But there are those micro influencers, and now these nano influencers that do exist. I actually gave a webinar a few weeks ago, and I talked about micro influencers, and I did a comparison a woman she promotes on. She's considered a micro influencer, and she promotes for a lot of the athletic wear, the Adidas and things like that. And, you know, she has probably about 20,000 followers and things like that. And what I was showing was it'll be a lot easier to approach her and to try to get some type of engagement with her as opposed to, you know, the Kim Kardashians and people at that level. And, you know, even though she just has, you know, 20,000 or so followers on Instagram, that's, you know, if that's an audience that really is your particular demographic, then that's, you know, that's really nothing to really sneeze at. That's still something that can move the needle if she's putting your products in front of her audience. So
yeah, and another, yeah, definitely, it's such a great strategy. And one of the side benefits of it is that they're creating really beautiful content that you can repurpose for your own social feeds.
True.
And, you know, so it's important to look at their aesthetic and make sure that the quality and the kind of look and feel really matches your brand's aesthetic. But that's a great tactic. And, you know, you can certainly reach a lot more influencers if you focus on the kind of micro tier and go that route.
Sure, for sure. Now, you know, I've been in the internet game for quite a long time. And I do recall when we kind of initially got started at OmniStar, we had a variety of different web-based solutions. And one of our strategies, and you can kind of tell me how it is today, but one of our strategies was doing press releases. We put out several different new versions of our different web solutions, and we did press releases. We used some of the online press release sites and put it out there. You know, today I don't know how effective it was back then, but my question is, today's space with social media, how effective are press releases? Are they still, is that even something an e-commerce business should even consider doing if they, let's say, have an announcement, a new product line or what have you?
Press releases do not really generate any editorial features. So in terms of trying to drum up media attention, it has absolutely zero impact.
Okay.
And back in the day, like what you're describing, the press release was kind of used almost for an SEO purpose.
Right.
And now, I mean, it's been many, many years, but the Google and other search engines, their algorithms are not weighing press releases at all because they realized that companies were just putting out whatever information they wanted to, you know, rank high for certain keywords or things like that. So it wasn't actual news. It was really just a search engine SEO tactic.
Gotcha.
So press releases don't do a whole lot, but what they can do, and some of our clients still want to release them on PR Web and PR Newswire, is they want to kind of control the conversation around a certain topic as it relates to their brand.
Okay.
So, you know, rather than pushing their site up in a search for SEO purposes or trying to generate other media features, they'll just have a press release available and searchable. So if someone is looking for certain keywords or, you know, they're announcing a partnership or, like you said, a new product launch, at least they'll be able to find some solid information that the brand is, you know, controlling. So we tend to not even really write press releases anymore. We're really just writing targeted strategic pitches. And usually that starts as like a solid core content that could be translated across a number of different media outlets. So it's like the same information you're using over and over again, but then the hook or the angle or the specific of the story around those key details will change depending on who we're pitching. So that's what editors are looking for more these days, is not so much a press release. If your pitch has all of the information, then, you know, they'll consider it for a feature, which is way more strategic and targeted than just blanketing a press release, which really has no impact anymore.
Right. That's kind of what I thought. I don't see them used too much at all. And I was really wondering, you know, what is it effective at all? I mean, occasionally I'll see them, but yeah, that's kind of what I figured as far as the search engines are concerned. I think back in the day, companies were kind of taking advantage of Google's looser algorithm
Yeah.
and just kind of
Yeah.
being a little spammy, I guess, if you will, and just trying to get out there via that route. But yeah, these days you can't. They've tightened things up a little bit, so I don't think you can't really do that too much these days. Now, I know with your company, and I mentioned in the intro, of course, you've worked with a variety of different brands and even some billion-dollar brands. And you mentioned, of course, there's companies that, of course, have you on a retainer, which I know is typical for dealing with a PR firm. But what about businesses that really can't afford to keep a PR firm on retainer? What are some tips that you can provide as far as some basic PR tips that they can do if they don't quite have a budget for a PR firm?
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it's totally doable on your own. It's easier than you think. It's really kind of keeping up with where you believe your target customers are hanging out. Are they on certain websites reading things? Are they kind of engaging with certain influencers? You got to kind of start with a plan. So again, it's about eliminating overwhelm and having a very small but solid strategy so you can actually take action and move forward.
Right.
But once you kind of figure out, it's that when you get struck with that feeling of, oh my God, we really could be featured here. Why don't they talk about my products? This is such a perfect fit for what we offer. Start to write those down, and they could be the, whatever outlets you're feeling that way about. When I say outlets, I mean websites, podcasts, influencers, feeds on social media. Start to take note of all of these things and it'll start to build a foundation what a good media outreach strategy is for you. And then you're going to want to kind of look for a little while, like you said, and do some research and see what they're writing about. What kind of features do they have regularly? And could your store fit in with those regular features? Or what holidays are coming up? What seasonal trends can you talk about that your store would be a great fit for a feature or a story about that seasonal trend? If it's a Halloween store, you can talk about the hottest costumes of the season, or, just thinking about what they're likely to be writing about. You're getting in their heads a little bit. And, it almost kind of mirrors what your marketing promotions are doing too. So if you have certain sales coming up for certain holidays, chances are editors are probably writing about those holidays or those seasons or those trends also. So try to fit into those and be very targeted. And when you're reaching out, you can usually find someone's contact information on the website. Then just send a very brief pitch. You don't have to give them the entire angle. Give them a solid call to action. What is the next step you want them to take after reading your email? What can they do to move forward with you? Do you want to offer a product sample? Do you want to offer them more images that they can consider running? Do you want to give them an interview with the store founder to give them some tips and trends that they can talk about related to that holiday? What are you offering? So give a very solid call to action at the end of the email and keep it short and brief. And that's the type of pitch that will convert. And if you don't hear anything right away, send a follow-up and send another follow-up, because we, even as agency owners, we get most of our pitches converting on the follow-up. So don't give up.
Right. That's some great advice. And I like what you said at the end there about the follow-up, because that's so true. And I think what a business, the key takeaways from what you said is, if these things can be done, I mean, you can really formulate your own PR strategy in-house. You don't have to necessarily hire a PR firm, on retainer. And of course, unless you have the budget to do that, unless your growth dictates that you should do that, then yeah, it makes sense. But, if you're just starting out, a lot of these things can be done in-house, and you just have to set aside the time and be consistent with it. And I think as far as the outreach is concerned, the main thing with the outreach that I see from my own experience is the follow-up is really the main thing. And you have to make sure you've got good CRM solution, some type of follow-up solution that will help you easily track all of your correspondence. So, and there's a lot of automated systems out there. We actually use a system here in-house to do a lot of our outreach. It's called Limlist. It helps us do our cold outreach, where you can kind of feed in a bunch of outreach templates, and it basically will just kind of go. You just feed it emails and you set a schedule for when you want the first email to go out, when you want the second one. And of course it'll stop if you get a response. So there's a lot of solutions like that, but that's one solution that we've used a lot of them. And that's one that we've had a lot of success with. So you have to keep in mind that all of these outlets and media outlets that you're reaching out to, they're getting pitched left and right daily. And so, you're not going to be, entrepreneurs that are listening shouldn't be surprised that, they're not going to get a response on their first email. That's typical. They may have to send 2, 3, 4, 5 emails before they hear anything. But the key thing is making sure you do the follow up and you track it. And, if you do get any correspondence back or you find out who you should direct your inquiry to, make sure you track that, you log it so that you know where to go on, future follow-ups. So yeah, that's, I think overall, it was a great piece of advice that you gave there for businesses. Yeah, everything that you mentioned, Jen, has been very empowering. I know for the listeners that have been listening, I hadn't really touched on PR before, and all while I've been the host of the e-commerce marketing podcast. So I think your insight is very invaluable to our listeners, and I'm glad we were able to touch on it today. But before we close things out, I always like to end now on a kind of a switch gears here, just a closing fun fact question. What's one thing that our audience would be surprised to know about you?
This is such a fun question. I'm actually sitting in my home office, which was designed by HGTV.
Okay, wow.
So, yeah, it was so awesome. My husband and I were on a show. It was quite a few years back, but the show was called HGTV'd, and it was giving dream home makeovers for HGTV superfans, which would be super fan over here. And they did such an incredible job. It was such a really, really cool, awesome experience. But I feel so just lucky and inspired every day to work. And I'm like looking around the room as I'm saying this. Okay. I just feel so inspired every day to be in this space. And it's so cool. And the experience of being on the show was great. And I love everything they picked, and it just felt so special to be, on one of the shows that I love and watch all the time. And now, even it's been 8 years, I still just absolutely love my space and everything they did in it. So
great.
That was the cool thing I got to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a fan of a lot of those HGTV shows as well. And I've seen a lot of them where they do the renovations and the makeovers. And that's an awesome opportunity because I know, there's tons of people that write into those shows and they kind of do a thorough screening process. So you're very fortunate to have been selected. And so, yeah, that's awesome. So, well, Jen, if, any of our listeners want to get in touch with you or reach you, what's the best way for them to do it?
You can check out our website. It's generationpr.com, and that's spelled with a J for Jen. Hey. And all of my social media handles are also at Generation PR with a J.
Okay, great. That is awesome. Well, thanks again, Jen, for being on the e-commerce marketing podcast. We appreciate all your insight, and I know it's going to go a long way with our listeners.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. Do you need to get more feedback and reviews from your customers and improve your customer retention? We have made it easy to do all of this with our advanced customer feedback software. Just visit getosi.com/feedback and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com/feedback.